North Korea's 8 promising core manufacturing industries, Jackpot industries in the post-China era. Episode 17. North Korea is the only untapped resource powerhouse, and even its position is incredible. Creating the miracle on the Taedong River. North Korea's Workers' Party can do a market economy. If North Korea denuclearizes and establishes diplomatic relations with the United States, export opportunities for 8 key manufacturing sectors will open up. By entering supply chains that are shifting away from China, North Korea can gain new opportunities for fostering its export-oriented industries. As global supply chains rapidly reorganize around friendshoring centered on allies, China's market share in the U.S. high-tech product market has plummeted by 30.1 percentage points over the past decade. Companies are relocating production bases to Vietnam and India to bypass tariff barriers and secure stable market access. But Vietnam has already reached its capacity limit. If North Korea enters this vacuum through denuclearization, industrialization at an unprecedented speed in history becomes possible. Let us examine the economic status that denuclearization opens up for North Korea as an institutional prerequisite. As seen in the case of Libya, the process proceeded rapidly in the following order immediately after the declaration of denuclearization, the establishment of U.S. interests sections, the commencement of IAEA inspections, investment by Western companies, the lifting of economic sanctions, and the normalization of diplomatic relations. If North Korea follows this path, joining the World Trade Organization WTO and securing permanent normal trade relations PNTR are key hurdles. Obtaining PNTR means automatically receiving most favored nation MFN tariffs on exports to the U.S., allowing for exports at tariffs in the 0.5% range for most items rather than the U.S. maximum tariff rate of 145%. Let us examine the 8 key manufacturing export opportunities that would open up under this scenario. The rare earth and strategic mineral refining and processing industries are the top priority. For critical minerals, bottlenecks occur in refining rather than mining, and refining bottlenecks directly lead to the suspension of manufacturing production. Currently, China controls approximately 90% of rare earth refining, and the U.S. and the EU consider resolving this bottleneck a top priority security issue. North Korea's rare earth reserves are estimated at up to 48 million tons, exceeding China's 44 million tons and making them the world's largest. Refining and processing these minerals, neodymium and dysprosium for EV permanent magnets, wind turbines, and guided weapons for defense for export aligns perfectly with the core demand of the supply chain decoupling strategy. Since Section 30D of the U.S. Internal Revenue Service IRA grants tax credits only for batteries using critical minerals, mined and processed in friendly nations, North Korea will automatically acquire this eligibility. Following the establishment of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and North Korea, the battery materials and components industry is capable of immediate inflow of Western capital. As the EU's Industrial Acceleration Act (IAA) and supply chain decoupling strategies centered on North American automakers proceed, trust and demand for non-Chinese battery materials are expanding. North Korea possesses the world's 4th largest reserves of graphite anodes, and as this is the item most urgently needing replacement for Chinese imports, it is highly likely that global battery material companies such as POSCO Future M, BASF, and Panasonic will engage in immediate joint ventures. Related materials, such as lithium and cobalt used as raw materials for separators and electrolytes, can also be developed in conjunction. Semiconductor back-end OSAT becomes a new nodal point in the supply chain of the CHIPS Act. The U.S. CHIPS Act aims to bring back semiconductor front-end processes to the U.S. and its allies accordingly. Back-end OSAT supply chains, including packaging and testing, must also be established outside of China. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix are actively participating in the supply chain restructuring, announcing plans to build factories in the U.S. worth $17 billion and $15 billion respectively. In this process, attracting OSAT complexes of Korean and U.S. semiconductor companies to the Kaesong or Rason Special Economic Zones would secure a unique position by combining Korea's design capabilities with North Korea's low-wage precision labor force. Electronic Manufacturing Services (EMS) can benefit from the saturation of the Vietnamese market. In May 2025, China's direct exports to the U.S. decreased by 43% year-on-year, while exports to the U.S. via Vietnam increased by 30% year-on-year. Vietnam is already facing a saturation of labor and factory sites. While companies like Apple and Hasbro are relocating their production bases to Vietnam and India due to lower labor costs and established manufacturing environments, experts commonly point out that it is difficult to find a country with a workforce and infrastructure comparable to China in terms of scale. North Korea is a realistic alternative to fill this gap, possessing a population of approximately 25 million and a highly disciplined workforce. For OEM production of textiles, clothing, and footwear, the Kaesong Industrial Complex, which is ready for immediate operation, can be utilized. The Kaesong Industrial Complex already has experience in manufacturing division of labor with South Korean companies through its operation from 2004 to 2016. As long as the U.S. maintains tariffs of over 145% on Chinese clothing and footwear, North Korea will emerge as an urgent alternative production site for global fast fashion brands such as Nike, Gap, and H&M immediately upon acquiring the PNTR. Its geographical proximity to South Korea and technical support from South Korean companies provide additional advantages compared to Bangladesh and Indonesia. There is demand from the European materials industry to reduce reliance on China for special steel, magnesite, and refractories. Magnesite is a key raw material for high-temperature refractories, and North Korea possesses one of the world's largest reserves. The EU's steel, cement, and glass industries are under regulatory pressure to reduce their dependence on China for refractories, and the export of special steel based on the Musan iron mine is immediately feasible through cooperation with POSCO. The software and IT outsourcing industries can utilize a legalized pool of talented personnel. Paradoxically, the level of North Korea's science and engineering workforce, proven by its hacking capabilities against the U.S., would provide immediate competitiveness in the digital outsourcing market such as AI data labeling, software development, and game QA once legalized. The model of the early 1990s, when IT services were first industrialized in Bangalore, India, can serve as a reference. The light industry, consumer goods, toy, and furniture sectors will benefit immediately from tariff arbitrage. As long as high tariffs on Chinese toys, furniture, and household goods persist, North Korea, having obtained PNTR, becomes the fastest alternative sourcing destination for U.S. retailers. These are items that require low production technology, allowing for immediate operation, and are easy for foreign companies to enter. Let us examine North Korea's key comparative advantages over current alternative nations. In the case of Vietnam, exports to the U.S. are projected to increase by 22% year-on-year by 2025, and India is also rapidly emerging as a production base for Apple's iPhones. However, neither Vietnam nor India possesses rare earth or strategic minerals, nor do they hold the status of a logistics hub bordering South Korea, Japan, and China. North Korea possesses the following three unique combined advantages. First, the perfect match between the world's largest reserves of rare earths, graphite and magnesite, and the demand for minerals shifting away from China. Second, due to its geopolitical location bordering South Korea, China, and Russia, it possesses a higher suitability as a Northeast Asian supply chain hub than any other alternative country. Third, it has a highly disciplined, low-wage workforce well-educated in science and engineering. This workforce can be deployed in technology-intensive manufacturing industries while earning less than half the wages of Vietnam. Let us examine North Korea's greatest constraints and corresponding strategies. The biggest structural constraint is the lack of power infrastructure. For manufacturing-intensive development, connecting to the Russian Kasan-Rajin gas pipeline or linking to the South Korean power grid is essential. This can be resolved by including energy infrastructure support in the denuclearization agreement package. The second is the absence of financial infrastructure. Foreign direct investment will not function without rejoining SWIFT, establishing foreign bank branches, and allowing free foreign exchange transactions. The essence of successful denuclearization lies in resolving security and regime instability conversely. This implies that North Korea will sit at the negotiating table only when an economic compensation package is provided simultaneously with regime security guarantees. A commitment to preemptive economic assistance on the scale of the Marshall Plan must serve as the key leverage in negotiations. Furthermore, North Korea's security anxieties can be alleviated through a four-nation pact in which the United States, China, Japan, and Russia recognize North Korea's status as a permanently neutral state and jointly guarantee its permanent security. Decoupling and friendshoring policies are long-term strategic approaches that reshape market principles, with the core task being to find alternative suppliers to replace the inexpensive materials currently sourced from China, particularly in areas such as battery materials and critical minerals. North Korea is the only major resource-rich nation capable of providing the answer to this challenge. If the prerequisite of denuclearization is met, the combination of Western capital and technology with North Korea's resources and labor force could constitute an economic revolution that completely redefines the geopolitics of the Korean Peninsula since the Korean War. Next time, we will look at the prospects for special economic zones if North Korea introduces a market economy following denuclearization. Thank you.